There's a mistake that destroys more dreams than lack of money, more careers than lack of talent, and more futures than any economic crisis. The curious thing is that almost no one notices when it begins. There's no big failure, no explosion, no dramatic moment. On the contrary, everything happens silently. A small expense here, an impulsive decision there, a debt considered normal, a desire to impress people who might not even remember your name tomorrow. And when most people finally realize what happened, they've already spent years building a life they'd rather escape, deep down. The most controversial point is that perhaps you were never poor due to a lack of money. Perhaps you were kept poor because you learned to believe in the wrong rules. They said that freedom meant consuming more, that success was appearing successful, that working harder and harder would solve all problems. But Machiavelli saw something that remains extremely relevant today. Those who do not understand human nature inevitably end up being governed by it. And the most effective control never happens through force. It happens when the victim themselves believes they are choosing freely. While millions desperately search for the next stock market hit, the next cryptocurrency, or the next miracle investment, they ignore a detail that completely changes the game. Wealth doesn't begin in the bank account, it begins in the mind. Before learning how to multiply money, you need to learn how to stop it from controlling your decisions. Before building wealth, you need to build mastery over your own desires. That's the difference between those who spend decades chasing freedom and those who make freedom chase them. Throughout this video, you'll discover why so many people earn more and remain trapped, why some seem rich while remaining completely dependent on their next paycheck, and why others, even living discreetly, achieve something that no amount of money can buy, the ability to say no when everyone else is forced to say yes. And perhaps the biggest surprise is realizing that the real enemy has never been the economy, the government, or the lack of opportunities. It has always been hidden in the small choices made every day, so common that almost no one pays attention to them, until it's too late. If something inside you awakened while listening, don't ignore that feeling. This channel isn't about videos, it's about memories. Remember who you were before the fear, before the exhaustion, before the silence. Each new video here is a different reflection of your own soul, an invitation to understand what the world never taught you. The power you seek outside has always been within you. If you feel that this journey speaks to what lives silently within you, sign up now, not to follow yet another creator, but to reconnect with something the world tried to make you forget. Because here, every word was made to heal, each reflection to awaken, and each video serves as a reminder. You are not alone on the path back to yourself. Click on subscribe and turn the algorithm into a daily reminder of who you really are. There's a dangerous idea that almost no one realizes. Freedom is rarely stolen all at once. It's usually sold in small installments, almost always with a smile on your face. A purchase made just to impress someone, a debt taken on because everyone does it, a job accepted just to maintain appearances. Little by little, these choices build an invisible prison. This is exactly what Machiavelli would understand by observing human nature. The greatest defeats don't begin with great battles, but with small concessions repeated until they become habits. Those who live seeking approval end up handing their own destiny over to strangers because they start making decisions guided by the gaze of others and not by their own conscience. Politics, guided by reality, not by ideals, teaches precisely the opposite, to look at the facts, not at comfortable illusions. After all, how many people work just to pay for things they bought to impress people they don't even respect? It seems like an exaggeration, but just look around. The credit card becomes an elegant chain, financing seems like an achievement, and the need to appear successful transforms each paycheck into fuel to maintain a persona. Little by little, Freedom disappears without a single day ever passing when someone can say, "Today I lost everything." The process is silent, slow, and extremely efficient. This is why Machiavelli valued decisions based on real human nature, because he understood that human beings almost always trade autonomy for immediate comfort without realizing the price they are paying. The end justifies, the means is often misinterpreted, but there is an important interpretation. When the true objective is to achieve independence, it will often be necessary to forego instant pleasures to protect something much greater. The real battle, however, has not even begun, because there is a force even more powerful than the desire for approval, and it controls people without needing to raise its voice. Few people realize that comfort, when it becomes a necessity, ceases to be a reward and becomes a leash. The greater the number of things indispensable for someone to feel good, the easier it becomes to control their decisions. This is precisely why Machiavelli observed that power never depends solely on strength, but on the ability to understand what motivates people. Better to be feared than loved doesn't mean spreading fear everywhere. It means understanding that those who depend too much on approval, next month's paycheck, or an unsustainable standard of living end up negotiating principles they once swore never to abandon. Just imagine two professionals. Both receive the same salary, but one has savings to live for several months without working, while the other is in debt, financing a car, apartment, trips, and dozens of hidden installments on their credit card. When an unfair order or a better opportunity arises, who truly has the freedom to choose? The first negotiates, waits, or simply leaves. The second accepts almost any condition because desperation speaks louder. That's when money reveals its most important function. It's not just for buying luxury, it serves to buy time, tranquility, and distance from panic. This is one of the most intelligent applications of virtu and fortuna, preparing oneself before luck changes direction, building a position where circumstances have less power over one's choices. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, teaches that independence is not born when everything goes right, but when someone manages to remain firm even when everything seems to crumble. The calculated use of force also appears here discreetly, because true financial strength is not spending to appear powerful, but saving enough resources to never be forced to accept any offer out of fear. Own and loyal armies can be understood as the assets, reserves, sources of income, and skills that work silently in favor of those who built them. While many collect objects, few accumulate options. And it is precisely when someone begins to perceive the difference between possessing things and possessing choices that a new illusion arises on the path, much more seductive than the first. There's a scene that repeats itself daily in practically every city in the world. A man gets out of a financed luxury car, wearing designer clothes, showing off an expensive watch, and posting photos that make anyone believe he's made it big. At the same time, another man arrives discreetly in an ordinary car, wearing simple clothes, almost never talks about money, and goes unnoticed by the crowd. Most people believe the first man is rich and the second merely lives well. This is precisely where one of society's greatest financial illusions is born. Machiavelli would quickly understand this phenomenon because he knew that the appearance of virtue influences multitudes, but never alters the reality of the facts. The image convinces, the numbers tell a different story. The first man may owe the bank more than he has in assets, while the second may have enough investments to never depend on a salary again. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, requires abandoning the need to appear and concentrating energy on simply being. The problem is that the human brain has been trained to compare shop windows, not balance sheets. No one sees the credit card bill, the financing, the loans, or the anxiety hidden behind a perfect photograph. Everyone only sees the surface shine. That's why so many people confuse consumption with power, when, in practice, excessive consumption often represents precisely the absence of it. The end justifies the means takes on an interesting meaning in this context. Giving up immediate validation may be the necessary price to build a freedom that no one can take away later. Those who understand the logic of virtù and fortuna prefer to strengthen their positions silently, knowing that luck favors those who are prepared when unexpected opportunities arise. While some buy symbols of wealth to convince strangers, others buy assets that will work for decades without making a sound. True wealth rarely shouts, it tends to grow silently. And just when someone learns to see this difference, an even more uncomfortable question arises. If wealth requires choices so different from those of most, why do so many people continue to insist on the easiest path? Almost everyone dreams of an extraordinary life, but few accept the unspoken rule that governs any true achievement. Every important choice eliminates dozens of other possibilities. There is no growth without renunciation, just as there is no harvest without first preparing the land. Machiavelli understood that power was never conquered by those who said yes to everything, but by those who learned to choose precisely what truly deserved their energy. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, teaches that time is the scarcest resource in existence, and wasting it on distractions is a luxury that exacts very high interest in the future. Many claim to desire financial independence, a healthy body, or a solid career. But when the time comes to exchange hours of entertainment for study, impulsive consumption for investments, or immediate comfort for discipline, they discover that, in reality, they only wanted the result, never the process. This is the great contradiction of human nature. The end justifies the means does not mean abandoning principles, but understanding that high goals require equally high decisions. Those who wish to build wealth may need to forego unnecessary travel for a few years. Those who dream of entrepreneurship may have to wake up earlier to study management, sales, marketing, and finance, while others rest. Those who wish to master investments can start with books like The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham, or The Psychology of Finance by Morgan Housel before investing a single reel. This preparation represents true virtù and fortuna, developing competence before opportunities arise. The calculated use of force also manifests itself in the ability to say no to what offers immediate pleasure, but compromises decades of future freedom. Constant adaptability means understanding that not every sacrifice will be the same in every phase of life, but the need to choose will remain forever. In the end, discipline is not a punishment. It is a filter that separates fleeting desires from permanent goals. And it is precisely when someone learns to protect their choices that they realize there is an even more dangerous enemy than the lack of discipline, the inability to control what enters and leaves their own fortress. There's a mistake that silently destroys fortunes, believing that earning more will automatically solve all financial problems. Reality shows the exact opposite. There are people who receive a modest salary and accumulate wealth over decades, while others multiply their income and continue to live under constant pressure. Machiavelli would see this difference as a matter of leadership. In any kingdom, a ruler who ignores small invasions soon loses control of the entire territory. The same happens with money. Every unexamined expense represents a small breach in the financial fortress. A loan, it seems harmless. Repeated hundreds of times, it becomes a silent army consuming resources that should strengthen the future. Politics, guided by reality, not ideals, demands that every outflow of money be questioned. Does this buy freedom or just feed a momentary impulse? This simple question completely changes the way we consume. The calculated use of force appears precisely in the ability to resist small temptations that seem irrelevant in isolation but devastating when added up over the years. An expensive coffee here, a forgotten subscription there, impulse purchases during sales, seemingly small installments. None of these break someone on their own. The problem is that they all work together day after day, eroding what could be transformed into investments, new sources of income, or a reserve capable of providing peace of mind. The end justifies the means takes on a different meaning. Protecting assets requires decisions that often seem unexciting, but produce extraordinary results in the long term. Decisions based on real human nature recognize that no one is perfectly rational all the time. Therefore, creating systems works better than relying solely on willpower. Automating investments, setting a limit for superfluous expenses, reviewing expenses monthly, and recording where the money actually goes are simple actions that close several loopholes before they grow. Constant adaptability means reviewing these strategies as income increases, preventing new consumption habits from immediately occupying every additional penny. After all, those who don't manage their own money inevitably end up working to sustain decisions they never consciously chose. And when that fortress finally begins to be protected, an even more strategic question arises. Was the real problem always knowing where to invest? Or does the answer begin much earlier? One of the most common questions from those who want to get rich seems intelligent, but hides a deep problem. What should I invest in? The answer seems to depend on stocks, cryptocurrencies, real estate funds, or whatever trend is happening. However, Machiavelli would probably answer with another, much more uncomfortable question: for what purpose? Before deciding where to put your money, you need to know what kind of life you want to build. Politics, guided by reality, not ideals, teaches that tools are never more important than strategy. A hammer is excellent for a carpenter and completely useless for someone who needs to cross a river. Similarly, a stock can be perfect for one person and terrible for another, even if both have exactly the same age and income. Those seeking financial independence might build a diversified portfolio with ETFs, solid stocks, real estate funds, and government bonds. Those who want to become entrepreneurs can obtain a much greater return by investing in knowledge, team, technology, or expanding their own business. The problem is that most people look for tactical answers to questions that should be philosophical. They ask which cryptocurrency to buy, but never reflect on how much risk they can actually handle. People ask if real estate is still worthwhile, but they don't even know if they want passive income, wealth growth, or geographical freedom. Decisions based on real human nature show that investing without self-knowledge often generates anxiety, regret, and constant changes in strategy. Constant adaptability doesn't mean chasing every new trend, but adjusting course when objectives change, without abandoning fundamental principles. The end justifies the means, reminds us that the true objective has never been to own the most talked about asset on the internet, but to build a financial structure capable of serving a life that truly makes sense. Virtue and fortune favor those who master the fundamentals before seeking shortcuts. While many spend hours following charts and market forecasts, they ignore the only question that determines all other decisions. What kind of freedom should this wealth buy in the future? And it is precisely in answering this question that one discovers that every financial strategy looks much more like a tree than a list of investments. Imagine a centuries-old tree. Those who pass by usually admire its green leaves, abundant fruit, and imposing branches. Almost no one stops to think that all of that exists only because there is a solid trunk supporting the structure and deep roots invisible to the eye. Wealth works in exactly the same way. Most people dedicate all their attention to the leaves: stocks, cryptocurrencies, real estate funds, gold, dollars, or any investment that is dominating the headlines. Very few look at the branches, which represent the strategies used to make these assets work together. Even fewer people strengthen the trunk, formed by the clear objectives that guide each financial decision, and almost no one dedicates time to the roots, precisely the most important part of the entire tree, the values that determine why the money is being accumulated. Machiavelli understood that no structure remains standing when its base is neglected. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, shows that trying to get rich without defined values is like planting a tree in unstable soil. At some point it will fall, even if it seems strong on the outside. Decisions based on real human nature reveal that those who invest simply because they saw someone else profiting will hardly remain steadfast during a crisis, as they never built their own convictions. Virtue and fortune reward those who first strengthen what no one else sees. The calculated use of force appears precisely in the discipline of daily nurturing the roots before seeking immediate rewards. Books like The Richest Man in Babylon, Financial Psychology, and Think and Grow Rich help strengthen this foundation because they teach principles that remain valid even when markets change completely. Constant adaptability means changing the leaves when necessary without uprooting the roots or breaking the trunk. After all, investments change, strategies evolve, and opportunities appear and disappear. But solid values continue to guide good decisions throughout life. And when someone finally understands where their roots are, they discover that there is an even more important question than knowing how to invest. Are their own values truly their own? Or were they silently bought by the world around them? There's a question almost no one dares to answer with absolute honesty. What truly has value for me? It seems simple, but most people answer with what they believe to be socially acceptable, not with what truly guides their choices. Machiavelli knew that human beings are rarely deceived by others first. They almost always begin by deceiving themselves. They say they seek freedom, but work only to maintain an appearance. They claim that family is their priority, but trade years of companionship for possessions that impress strangers. They talk about peace, but live pursuing a lifestyle that demands constant anxiety. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, invites us to abandon these masks and observe the facts. Where is your time, your money, and your attention? That's where your true values reside, not in the pretty phrases repeated in moments of motivation. Decisions based on real human nature demand this exercise in brutal honesty, because no financial strategy works when it's built on desires that belong to other people. If someone truly values freedom, perhaps it makes more sense to accumulate assets that generate passive income than to buy a luxury car. If you value family, perhaps investing in available time, financial security, and shared experiences will produce far more wealth than changing your cell phone every year. If you wish to build a business empire, money should perhaps finance businesses, technology, teams, and knowledge, not symbols of success. And if the true objective is status, at least have the courage to admit it, because only then will it be possible to consciously calculate the price of that choice. The end justifies the means, reminds us that every destiny demands coherence between objective and behavior. Virtù and fortuna favor those who live according to their own priorities, not the expectations of the crowd. Constant adaptability means reviewing these values throughout life, because mature people evolve, but they don't abandon what truly matters. In the end, wealth always reveals what someone has chosen to nurture in silence for years. And when values finally become clear, the very definition of wealth ceases to seem as obvious as it has always been taught. For a long time, it was taught that wealth could be measured by the size of the house, the car in the garage, or the watch on the wrist. But a closer look reveals that many owners of these symbols live trapped by schedules they hate, clients they tolerate out of obligation, and bills they can't afford to miss. Is that really wealth? Machiavelli would probably answer that there is no power where there is no freedom of choice. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, shows that wealth is not what can be photographed, but what allows one to say yes or no without fear determining the answer. The truly wealthy man is not the one who buys everything he desires, but the one who can choose where he works, with whom he works, when he rests, and which battles deserve his energy. His assets buy time before buying objects. They buy tranquility before buying appearances. They buy autonomy before buying status. Decisions based on real human nature teach that money solves few emotional problems, but solves a large part of the practical problems that steal people's peace. A substantial financial reserve means being able to care for your family without panicking in the face of unforeseen events, refusing disadvantageous offers, dedicating months to learning a new skill, or starting a business without desperately depending on the first result. The calculated use of force appears precisely in the conscious choice to protect one's own time, because it is the only resource impossible to recover. Virtù and Fortuna remind us that opportunities usually appear for those who have the margin to take advantage of them. Those who live financially suffocated almost never manage to act at the right moment, even when recognizing an excellent opportunity. Constant adaptability means understanding that wealth also involves protecting attention, avoiding spending precious hours chasing distractions that do not add value to the future. The end justifies, the means takes on a new meaning when the goal ceases to be accumulating wealth and becomes accumulating freedom. After all, whoever controls their own time controls the direction of their own life. And when this freedom begins to exist, something silently changes within the person. Fear ceases to occupy the center of decisions, completely altering the way they negotiate with the world. There's a quiet moment in the life of someone who builds wealth when money ceases to be just a number in the bank and begins to completely alter how that person sees the world. Not because it has become more important, but because fear has lost some of its power. Machiavelli understood that those who negotiate out of desperation almost always accept conditions they would never accept if they had alternatives. That's precisely why true financial independence changes the balance of human relationships. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, teaches that freedom is born when there is room to wait. Those who desperately need to close a deal today accept excessive discounts. Those who depend on that job to survive endure humiliations they would never endure under other circumstances. Those who have no savings sell their time for the lowest price because they believe there is no choice. But those who have built a financial fortress negotiate in a completely different way. They can refuse unfair offers, wait for the right opportunity, leave toxic environments, and say no without feeling like the world will collapse the next morning. This is perhaps the greatest return that money can offer. Decisions based on real human nature show that desperate people rarely make good choices because the brain prioritizes surviving the present instead of building the future. Virtue and fortune favor precisely those who prepare before the storms, creating room to act rationally when others panic. The calculated use of force appears in the ability to use silence, patience, and waiting as negotiation tools. Not every battle needs to be won immediately. Some are won simply because someone was able to avoid acting at the wrong time. The end justifies the means. In this context, reminds us that years of financial discipline buy something that money cannot acquire overnight: serenity in the face of pressure. Constant adaptability means recognizing when it's worth insisting, when it's worth negotiating, and when the smartest decision is simply to get up from the table and follow another path. In the end, those who can wait always negotiate better than those who need to rush. And there is a simple, almost invisible mechanism capable of amplifying this advantage year after year, transforming small differences into distances that are practically impossible to overcome. There's a principle so simple that many people ignore it precisely because it seems too simple. True financial power is born from the gap between income and expenses. It's in this small gap that the future begins to be built. Those who spend exactly everything they earn are running on a treadmill. They exert themselves daily, but remain in the same place. Machiavelli would understand this mechanism as the slow construction of a strategic advantage. No kingdom strengthens itself simply by collecting taxes. It grows when it manages its resources well and continuously reinvests in its own expansion. Politics, guided by reality, not ideals, teaches that increasing this difference can happen in two ways simultaneously: increasing the capacity to generate income and reducing expenses that don't produce a real return. The first step, therefore, is to widen the gap. This can mean negotiating a raise, developing a high-value skill, creating a parallel income stream, starting a business, or simply eliminating expenses that exist only out of habit. The second step is to prevent this difference from disappearing in immediate consumption. This is where investment comes in. Whether it happens through ETFs, shares of solid companies, real estate funds, government bonds, or the business itself, what matters is that the money stops working only to pay bills and starts generating new resources. The third step seems tedious, but it is precisely this that changes destinies. Repeating this process for years without interrupting the cycle due to euphoria or impatience. Virtù and fortuna reward those who remain consistent, while most give up because they don't see quick results. Decisions based on real human nature recognize that no one builds wealth in a single extraordinary move, but in hundreds of common decisions executed with uncommon discipline. The calculated use of force appears in the ability to protect this gap against fleeting impulses, while constant adaptability allows for increasing income whenever new opportunities arise without automatically raising the standard of living. The end justifies the means here takes on a powerful meaning. Small sacrifices repeated produce a freedom that large impulsive gestures will never be able to deliver. But there is a silent enemy that tends to appear just when everything starts to go right, and it is responsible for destroying the advantage gained by thousands of people every year. There is an enemy that doesn't arrive when income decreases. On the contrary, it usually appears precisely when life begins to improve. The first salary increase comes, then an unexpected bonus, a business prospers, or a promotion finally happens. The feeling is one of victory. But almost imperceptibly, a bigger car, a more expensive apartment, more frequent restaurants, new subscriptions, more sophisticated trips, and small expenses that seem insignificant in isolation also appear. When someone looks at their account a few months later, they make an uncomfortable discovery. They earn much more than before, but continue to feel exactly the same financial pressure. Machiavelli would understand this phenomenon as a defeat caused not by external enemies, but by the inability to govern oneself. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, teaches that increasing income does not automatically mean increasing freedom. Often it only means increasing the cost of one's own survival. Decisions based on real human nature show that human beings adapt quickly to comfort. What yesterday seemed like a luxury today becomes a necessity, and tomorrow it already seems insufficient. This cycle never ends on its own. The end justifies the means, reminding us that every increase in income represents an opportunity to strengthen financial stability before strengthening consumption patterns. A simple strategy can completely change this game. Whenever income grows, pre-decide that a significant portion of that increase will be directed towards investments before new habits can capture it. If someone receives a raise of $2,000 per month, for example, they can decide that $200 will automatically go to investments and only $800 will finance lifestyle improvements. This rule protects assets without preventing the person from enjoying the progress achieved. Virtù and fortuna favor those who create systems capable of overcoming the natural impulses of the mind. The calculated use of force appears precisely in the discipline of controlling one's own appetite when everyone around encourages consumption as a symbol of success. Constant adaptability means allowing the quality of life to evolve, but never at the same speed as income. After all, those who increase their earnings without proportionally increasing their desires begin to build something much more valuable than apparent wealth, a financial advantage that grows silently year after year. And this advantage only becomes truly powerful when you stop standing still and start working for yourself. Saving money is an excellent decision, but there's a detail that separates those who merely save from those who truly build wealth. Idle money works far less than it could. Many believe that simply accumulating a large sum in a bank account is enough to be secure, but inflation silently erodes this wealth, reducing its purchasing power year after year. Machiavelli knew that a fortress doesn't remain protected simply because its gates are closed. It needs to be constantly strengthened, replenished, and prepared to face future attacks. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, teaches exactly this. Protecting assets doesn't just mean preventing losses, but making them grow above the inevitable obstacles of time. After building a solid emergency fund, enough to cover several months of expenses, the surplus money needs to start working. It doesn't matter if the chosen path involves global ETFs, shares of profitable companies, government bonds, real estate funds, or one's own business. The principle remains the same. Unproductive resources represent wasted opportunities. Decisions based on real human nature show that many people fail to invest because they wait to find the perfect moment or the perfect investment. Meanwhile, the years go by. Interestingly, those who become wealthy rarely seek excitement in the financial market. On the contrary, Virtù and Fortuna tend to favor those who accept the tedium of consistency. They invest every month, ignore alarmist headlines, resist promises of quick riches, and allow compound interest to do its silent work for decades. The glamour of trends often seduces precisely those who have not yet developed patience. Today it's a miraculous cryptocurrency, tomorrow a trendy stock, then an asset that no one can miss. The calculated use of force appears in the ability to remain firm when everyone seems to be running in another direction. The end justifies the means takes on a profound meaning. Giving up the excitement of chasing shortcuts is the price paid by those who wish to build wealth that survives the test of time. Constant adaptability means revising the strategy when the fundamentals change, never because the crowd has changed its mind. In the end, discipline rarely generates headlines, but almost always generates wealth. And when that wealth begins to grow on its own, an emotion arises that many try to avoid throughout their lives, although it can become one of the greatest allies of those seeking freedom. Fear often gets an unfair reputation. Most people believe it's always an enemy, when in reality, everything depends on who's in charge. Machiavelli would never advise anyone to ignore fear. He would teach them to use it as a silent advisor, never as a ruler. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, starts from the idea that the future will always bring crises, recessions, market changes, unexpected losses, and moments of uncertainty. Pretending these events won't happen isn't optimism, it's recklessness. Decisions based on real human nature recognize that everyone feels fear in the face of the unknown, but only a few manage to transform it into preparation. That's precisely where the difference lies between those who panic and those who remain calm when the storm arrives. Those who build a financial reserve, diversify investments, develop new professional skills, create alternative sources of income, and learn continuously are not being pessimistic. They are reducing the influence of chance on their own lives. Virtue and fortune teach that luck often smiles on those who were already prepared when opportunity arose, or when crisis forced everyone else to improvise. Consider two entrepreneurs facing a recession. One spent everything he earned in the good years, believing that growth would be eternal. The other strengthened his cash flow, reduced debt, studied new markets, and prepared alternative plans. Both face the same crisis, but live completely different realities. The calculated use of force appears precisely in the ability to act before urgency forces desperate decisions. The end justifies the means reminds us that some of the smartest choices seem excessively cautious while everything is going well, but reveal their true value when the scenario changes. Constant adaptability means accepting that no plan will survive intact into the future. But this will never be a reason to stop planning. The true strategist does not try to predict every detail of tomorrow. He builds conditions to remain strong regardless of what happens. In the end, those who make fear their teacher will hardly be turned into its prisoner. And when this preparation finally produces peace of mind, an inevitable consequence begins to emerge. The ability to say no to the world without feeling that one is putting one's own survival at risk. Ultimately, the greatest demonstration of wealth lies not in the ability to buy anything, but in the peace of mind of not needing to buy what is meaningless. True freedom belongs to those who have developed the power to refuse proposals that compromise their principles, to refuse debts that steal their future, to refuse relationships built solely on self-interest, to refuse the impulse to consume, to fill voids that no amount of money can fill. Machiavelli understood that every strong ruler needed to protect their kingdom not only from enemies attacking the walls, but also from those trying to enter through the gates opened by recklessness. Financial life follows exactly the same logic. Every uncontrolled desire represents a possibility of weakening a fortress built over years of discipline. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, shows that no one remains free by chance. Freedom is a direct consequence of repeated choices made when no one is watching. The end justifies the means here takes on its deepest meaning, enduring small renunciations today to achieve decades of autonomy tomorrow. Better to be feared than loved can be understood, in this context, as the ability to be respected for one's own decisions without needing the constant approval of those who are trapped by appearances. Avoiding being hated also means avoiding becoming a slave to the expectations of others, preserving relationships without surrendering control of one's own life. Virtù and fortuna reward those who build a solid foundation before seeking recognition, while the calculated use of force appears in the ability to protect assets, time, energy, and attention against anything that threatens to divert them from their greater purpose. Own and loyal armies represent financial reserves, investments, knowledge, assets, and skills that continue to work silently even when the world is going through difficult times. Decisions based on real human nature remind us that the greatest adversary is rarely in the market, the economy, or governments. It almost always appears disguised as immediate desire. constant adaptability ensures that the fortress continues to evolve without losing its foundations. In the end, those who learn to govern themselves discover what few understand throughout their lives. No one can buy the freedom of someone who has never put their conscience, their time, and their future up for sale. If there's one lesson that runs through everything presented so far, it's this: freedom is never given. It is built brick by brick, choice by choice, decision by decision. Most people will continue to believe that getting rich depends only on earning more money, when in fact the greatest challenge has always been learning to govern oneself. Machiavelli understood that no kingdom remains strong when its ruler is unable to control his own impulses. The same is true of financial life. Those who master their desires cease to be easily manipulated by circumstances, by the opinions of others, and by promises of immediate gratification. Now pause and answer with absolute honesty. If you had to make an important decision today, would it be guided by your principles or by the fear of losing comfort? Do you truly have the freedom to refuse what doesn't make sense? Or do you still depend on approval, next month's paycheck, and a standard of living that demands more and more from you? How many of your choices were consciously decided? And how much simply happened because you followed the path everyone else seemed to be following? Transformation doesn't begin when your income increases. It begins when your awareness increases. You may not be able to change your entire reality today, but you can change your next decision. You can analyze every expense before making it. You can build your savings. You can invest in knowledge. You can strengthen your financial fortitude. You can stop selling your freedom in small installments and finally start buying it back. If this video has given you a new perspective on money, power, and freedom, write a single sentence in the comments. Today, I begin to build my fortress. I want to know how many people have decided to abandon the illusion of appearances to build wealth that no one can take away. And if you want to continue learning about Machiavelli, strategy, human nature, power, wealth, and freedom from a perspective that few dare to show, subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. That way, you won't miss the next videos, which were created for those who prefer to understand the rules of the game instead of just playing without understanding. After all, whoever masters their own mind has already taken the first step towards mastering their own destiny.